Hi. So November is now just ending today as I upload this, and tomorrow as I record it. And officially my Nanowrimo 2021 has come to an end. I believe this is my fourth and final video in my Nanowrimo series that I am uploading, and this is just the results, stuff I learned from this experience, stuff I might change next time, and what happened in the past month as I tried to write my novel in this month. So if you watched my first video, you know that I have never managed to write more than about 20,000 words, and that I thought 50,000 was inaccessible for me. So I changed it to 30 for myself because I thought that was a little bit more doable. Did I reach 30,000 this month? No, I did not reach 30,000, and I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news for the people that have joined me on this journey, but I did not reach 30,000 words, and that's not a surprise to me because, as I said, 20,000 is my max, and I really struggle to write. I just don't have the attention span for it. I really have to be like an all-in-one, or else I just kind of like lose focus on it, and it sort of becomes a chore, even though I enjoy writing a lot, just because I feel like it's not creative enough. But even though I didn't reach my goal, and I really hope that everyone who was participating did manage to achieve their goal, and even if you didn't, you still participated, so well done, because I still feel some sense of accomplishment for even just doing it, really, because I always forget about it every single year until it's already halfway through November. But I hope that it wasn't such a big disappointment, that you won't just listen to me talk about what I learned and what I changed and things about my idea that I think maybe were the reason that I didn't quite reach my goal. I think number one, the main problem was this wasn't necessarily an idea that I was passionate about. I really loved it back whenever I came up with it about a year or two ago, and I was obsessed with it for a short amount of time. For like a few weeks I was really thinking about every single character that should go into this, and then I gave up, which is why, as you know, it ended after about a quarter to half of the way through the book. I had no plan for anything after that, and I only had the characters that were relevant for the first few chapters in my head. So I really went into it not knowing enough about the world, the plot, or the characters to actually do anything. And I kept telling myself throughout the whole thing that this was just the first draft. The characters didn't need to be consistent and the plot didn't need to make sense as long as I got the ideas and the words down. But as I kept writing it, I just kept like putting myself down because it didn't feel like it was as good as I wanted it to be, even for a first draft. And I think it's because I didn't know who any of the characters were, that Varric, my main character, was so inconsistent. I know in my mind that I wanted him to be kind of unlikable, especially at the start whenever he's like 14 and kind of a brat, but I just couldn't do it. It was really difficult for me. So he would go in between like he was this quiet kid in the village and no one liked him because he was a weirdo and an outsider, to like people didn't want to give him up because he was like grew up in that village and he really wanted to explore the world and like be a powerful like mage, but also at the same time he was like, I don't know if I should leave. So like that didn't make any sense, and it just bothered me like how nothing made sense, and then it made it really hard to continue writing the story whenever all of that made no sense anyway. I think as well one of the reasons that especially the start of the book was particularly hard for me to write was because there's not a lot of characters in the first part of the book. Really the only three important people in the first few chapters are Varric, my main character, his dad, who I had no character for other than he's kind of a dick, and the headmistress, who only shows up like after Varric finds out about his magic. She's mostly just there to be pretty cool, so there wasn't a lot of like interactions, and the things that I really like about books and media especially are character interactions, characters that I can, you know, see myself in or be fond of. And I especially love books about like friendship and coming of age and stuff like that. So the fact that I was really just trying to focus on Varric by himself for a large part of it, I think that that was a really tough place to start. But obviously I wanted to start there because that's the only part of the book I had a plan for, which was Varric is a young boy in a village who is kind of an outsider, and then it turns out that he has magic, and then he gets whisked away to like a magic training academy, and that's basically like the only set thing I had for the whole idea, other than like the theme of like pressure and growing up and realizing that like being the chosen one is a really difficult job and sometimes can hinder more than help or whatever. But as as I went on, the last time I posted about this was about 2 weeks ago, and that was my like 47-minute type with me like ASMR video, which I just decided to do because I used to watch people type essays whenever I had stuff to do for university, so I thought it might be fun for my book. And that's the last time that I like focused on that book like really well, because after that I changed what I wanted the start of the book to be. And it's really hard for me to write it because I decided that the start of the book that I had, I liked the idea of, but the problem is I've read it so many times and I've read it so much better than I think that I could ever write it. Like, for example, it's sort of similar to Pedro Irvy's um, series that, oh god, I can never remember what the name of it is. The Trader's Son is the first book that I talk about all the time because it's one of my favorite fantasy series that I got for like 99p on Amazon, and it's still going. It's book 12 and it's only been out for like 2 years, but that's my favorite fantasy series so far. And it's very similar to the opening there, and that's because it is a trope opening. Like, it's a very generic fantasy opening, but it was very similar and I really liked that. And then I felt more like, I was like, I'm not doing it as well as he did, so I thought, well then how can I change it? How can I make it into something that isn't exactly like other books that I have enjoyed? And so I decided instead of him being like a young village boy who suddenly out of nowhere becomes the chosen one, that, you know, like maybe he was born the chosen one, and like, so it's a very different start to his life, which I guess might explain why he's a little bit more unlikable, I guess, as it goes on. But that means that I then have to change the entire start of the book to match it, and pretty much the rest of the book in my head should flow the exact same way, but it will have an impact on how he grows up, on his personality, on his relationships with people. And it also means that I would get to bring all the other characters in earlier, but it also means that I have to add more characters in, which means I had to come up with characters whenever I only had 4 to begin with, or 5 including the headmistress. And I needed more characters to fill the space because he needed to like have people that he talked to as he grew up and learned how to do magic and stuff like that. And so it was just like a lot to suddenly put on myself, that I was trying to do that, and I had like this deadline of 2 weeks to like try and write 30,000 words of this new idea, because I basically, everything that I had was part of the idea that I was scrapping. And so in the end, I probably got maybe 7 or 8 thousand for the original idea in the first like 2 weeks, which obviously wouldn't have even got me to 30,000 if I had continued at that rate, but it was alright. In the last half of the month where I had my new idea, I was sitting down mostly just trying to plan it and the characters, and then I didn't realise how much time had passed, and before I knew it, it was pretty much the end of the month, and I have about 5 to 6,000 words for this new idea, and it's still not perfect, and the characters are kind of inconsistent, and it's not great. But as a first draft, I think that this draft is much more solid than my original first draft, because I think I actually am a little bit more passionate about the story of this part. I like the fact that he interacts more with people. I actually quite like the new characters I've come up with. I think that they're really interesting. What I did find was actually like planning does make a difference, because instead of just going in with a rough idea and almost nothing else, actually sitting down and answering questions and trying to figure out exactly what's going to happen and how people would act actually makes it easier to write how it goes down, which is amazing. How would I have ever known? I think it's just kind of something that I have to teach myself, is how to plan and then how to put that plan into action. But I bought a planner from Etsy. I can't remember the exact name of the shop, so I'll put it up on screen, but I bought this like 80-page book planner from them, and it's pretty amazing, and it just has like all these questions like, what is your antagonist like? How does your antagonist reflect the protagonist of the book? What are your scene orders? You can have brainstorm and stuff, and it helped me a lot in that little planning stage that I had. So I now have 3 new characters that are around Varric's age. So it's now Varric, Darren, Eliza, who were my original ones, Leandro, who was a later addition but still last year, and now I have Ren, I have Aisha, and I have Nyla, and they are now 3 add-ons to the group, and they are also there. I have a little bit more of an idea of sort of like how dark and graphic I would ever want it to go. I still want it to be not like crazy, obviously. I hate reading like dark gory books, that's like just not my thing, but it you know, it deals with some heavier topics like things like depression and, you know, perhaps some sort of character death and stuff like that. So there is a little bit more. I sort of have a more of an idea where I want to go there. I think I want to sort of straddle the fine line between young adult and new adult in that sort of level. I also struggled throughout writing it whether I should do it in third person or first person, because whenever I read, I always think that first person sounds like a little bit, like, not cringy, but like a little bit cringy. And I always hate writing in first person because I just don't know how to explain someone's thoughts. But as I was writing it, I kept thinking like third person just doesn't get into Varric's headspace enough. It just sort of makes him seem like kind of stupid. So I needed to get into his headspace, and which allowed me more room with the other characters as well, because then perhaps maybe like they have a different personality to how they show Varric, and then we learn about that later and stuff like that. So especially with characters like Leandro and Varric don't get on, especially whenever they're younger. So from Varric's point of view, like Leandro's this massive like dick. He's self-absorbed, he's rude, and he's just kind of mean. But to everyone else, like Leandro's actually like a pretty decent guy. They all like him. They think he's funny because that's all that Varric sees. So I mean, spoilers for the book. Whenever if I ever write it, Leandro's actually like a funny guy. I don't want to go on too much longer because like I didn't meet my goal, and I'm mostly just saying like keep trying even if you haven't done it, and I'll keep trying even though this. But I guess my words of advice are try not to do a project unless you're passionate about it. If I was still as passionate about this as I was whenever I came up with it, maybe I would have been able to write more. I think that the fact that I came up with this new opening and it made me a little bit more excited shows like how much more of a passion can actually help you write, instead of something that I thought of literally after like a year and a half of not thinking it about a week before Nanowrimo. And probably also that if you like something, you should include it in your book. Like I really like character interactions, so I probably should have included some character interactions in my book instead of just trying to go into some sort of world building that I didn't plan. So you should probably plan stuff as well. So I mean, here's hoping that next year that I actually manage to do something, maybe a little bit more. Will I reach my goal next year? We don't know. I could be a whole new person next year. We don't know that. I really hope that you guys did well, even if you didn't reach your goal. Like, congratulations for trying anyway. And I hope you guys had fun, because I actually did. I did have fun. Occasionally, I did have fun. I'm kind of interested in exploring more with this idea, and I'll leave you with a couple of lines from my book that is in its very early drafts. It was weird to think that not everybody was the chosen one, because that's the only life I've ever known. I was born to save the world. So strong opening, nothing you've ever seen before. The wick lit up in flame almost immediately, and I felt a grin grow across my face. Smugly I thought that Leandro could stick his words up his ass, because I was just as good as everyone else. Only my finger hadn't stopped being on fire. Instead, my whole hand lit up, and I felt the heat rushing up my arm, and it was very painful. The others were watching me, and I knew that they were expecting this because I could hear them snickering in the background, except for Darren, who was whispering my name over and over at me to make sure that I was alright, and Eliza was simply watching on, quite unimpressed by my action. Finally, it seems like the headmistress had run out of patience, and she closed the fire for me. Does that make sense? No, it doesn't. From the back I could hear Leandro snicker one more time, and hear him say, "What's the point of being the chosen one if you can't even use magic?" That's that. Was it good? No. Was it funny? No. Does it make sense? No. But I wrote it. I wrote it. So that's the kind of quality that was there. So you can obviously see why I'm not a published author, because I can't write and it sucks. But thank you for joining me on this journey, and I'm sorry that that was the ending to it, because I'm sure that you were hoping that I would like wax lyrical about this amazing idea and I'd have like this beautiful like metaphorical style of writing, and I don't. It doesn't make sense, and it's like a 4-year-old wrote it. But thank you so much for joining me on this journey, and I hope you enjoyed it, and maybe next year I'll try again. Maybe I'll try again, we don't know. But thank you so much, and I'll see you next time. So, bye!